You know, there's a push by the Canadian Taxpayers Federation to have the CBC completely defunded. Kris Sims is the Alberta director of the CTF, and she brought forth her concerns in Ottawa at a recent Heritage Committee meeting earlier this month. She joins us now from Lethbridge to discuss this in more detail. Kris, why are you echoing Pierre Poilievre's talking point on having our public broadcaster defunded?
I must say, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation started this, and we think Pierre's copying us. But we're happy to have any political party pick up this torch and say that the CBC needs to be defunded for three major reasons. One, the CBC is costing way too much money. This year, it's $1.4 billion. To put the money into perspective, that could otherwise pay the salaries of about 7,000 police officers and 7,000 paramedics. Two, nearly nobody is watching it, Hal. The CBC gets microscopic TV ratings. And three, journalists should not be paid by the government. It's a conflict of interest, and it's got to stop.
Now, Kris, many people would argue that nothing can be done about defunding the CBC until we see a change in government. How do you see it?
It's one of those things, right? Prime Minister Justin Trudeau really needs something to give him a boost in the polls. And so far, it sounds like he doesn't want to scrap the carbon tax. And he continuously doubles down on things like seizing people's private property in the forms of firearms. And we're seeing now, from the looks of it, a terribly bigger deficit than even we had feared. So, hey, maybe this is something that he can pick up on. But based on his recent comments in Halifax, where he sniffed at that idea of defunding the CBC, so much so that he really doesn't like bumper stickers, really makes him mad, I don't see him making this change. However, Pierre Poilievre has committed to defunding the CBC, and we will hold him to that promise if he forms government.
Now, some believe that if the Conservatives do get in, they will only defund CBC English TV and not the French side, since it would give TVA a monopoly over Canada. How do you see this playing out?
We don't want them to do a half measure. We want the line item, that is the CBC in the federal government budget, deleted. So in this case, if it were the most recent budget, $1.4 billion gone. I will point out the CBC/Radio Canada does generate around $500 million of its own money, apart from government. So that's nothing to sneeze at. That money could be used for things like Radio Canada or a form of Radio 1. It could look a lot like TV Ontario. Combine that with a bunch of subscriptions and donations and support. They could do their own thing free from government, and that's what they should do.
Thanks so much for your time today, Kris. That was Kris Sims, Alberta Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, joining us from here in Lethbridge.